Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft, and I have another quick look review for you today, and this time it's something a little outside of what we normally look at on this channel, which is broadly speaking aircraft. Today I have a car. What on earth? So this is a brand new, it's just come out, just came into Jadlam last week or the week before. This is the Tamiya Toyota Supra, and this is a custom version. Why on earth do I have this, you might ask? I do not own a Toyota Supra. However, a very good friend of mine, Christopher, does own a Toyota Supra, much like this one. And Chris has helped me out on the channel in the past. He is in fact the person who designed the chatterbox screen logo. And yes, he drives a Supra like this. So when I saw that this kit was coming, I let him know, and he was duly quite pleased about that, and in fact bought one at the moment it was released, and here it is. And obviously I will be slapping it together for him at some point. And a few of you have been encouraging me. I'm going to assume it's encouragement. Cynical side peep in there. To do something a little outside the norm in the channel in terms of building stuff, and I'm going to. This is one of the things. The other thing that I'm planning, I don't yet have the kit for it, is a build to utilise this detail set. So this is for the RJN Destroyer Kagero. So hopefully in the coming several months you will see a ship, albeit a small one, and an automobile on the channel. So Tamiya, I feel like it's almost pointless reviewing these kits, to be honest. Brand new Tamiya kits are never bad, but let's have a look what's in it anyway. So the price on this is around about £35, and I thought that seems quite reasonable for a Tamiya kit. I know that at the end of last year I bought a new tool Tamiya Ford Mustang for my daughter, and that was a lot more than £35, so I wondered why it was cheaper. And I'm absolutely making this up, but I think it's possibly because this kit does not include an engine. So in the box, bag of tyres, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sprues plus a chrome plus a body. Quite a lot going on. So I'll get them all out bit by bit, have a quick look through them. Quick look at it. First of all, I have here Sprue F, and this is moulded in black plastic, and this is something Tamiya do with their car kits and their bike kits, is they utilise different coloured sprues, which actually can be useful. Or it isn't always useful, but I have found in the past with some of the motorcycle kits that I've made, that sometimes these black parts you can literally just leave them in the black plastic and they look just fine. This is obviously there are some wheels here, and I think these are the custom version wheels. You've got diffusers and spoilers and odds and sods, all parts which should be black or carbon effect on the finished model, and as I'm sure everybody will expect, the moulding is absolutely flawless. Not a bit, not a hint of flash or anything else remotely resembling problematic moulding here. And all of the sprue attachment stuffs, for the most part anyway, they're in fairly innocuous places and should be quite easy to deal with. So a close up of those alloys. And the diffuser moulding. This is for the back. And it does loop round for the little side sort of winglet things. So that is Sprue F. Next out of the box, and still in black, we have Sprue B. This one mostly has internal parts. You can see there are seats, consoles, door panels, dashboard parts and what have you. It looks like we've got a couple of options on dashboards, which basically we've got a right hand drive or a left hand drive. A couple of console options. I'm going to just go out on a limb and assume that one's automatic and one is manual. And then over here we've got some more body parts. These are some grills. Hello camera, would you like to focus? Why thank you. Very nicely done grill effect there. Here's your console detail and your seat. And the dashboard for the left hand drive version. Again, it's all very beautifully moulded with very, very crisp and precise detail. It's not overloaded with detail, to be fair, but it's very, very adequate indeed. I wonder what these are. Do we think these might be speaker grills? See if I remember to notice them in instructions. There's your steering column with your stalks, rear view mirror, windscreen wipers. There are 4, obviously catering still for the left and right hand drive end of things. All very, very nicely done. Next one out, and this one is white. So there are some external body parts on this, which is why it's white. Now I'm not sure if Tamiya seriously expect the modeler to potentially not paint the body shell, but you will note when you look at these that the finish on these parts of the finish of the plastic, I don't know if I can get this to reflect or not because it's white, is exceptional. It's very, very glossy, almost like a clear part would be. I don't think I'm able to get that to show up on camera, but that fact alone suggests to me that probably Tamiya do think that some modelers might like to actually not paint the shell or the body parts. I digress. This is Sprue. There's a steering wheel and there are some underside components which might have been better moulded in black, to be fair, but you know, what are you going to do? These are pieces for the seats. That's a bit of under tray, and as I say, some body parts, and the mouldings on stuff like this, that's some very exciting moulding, isn't it? No doubt one of those black parts will sandwich it to there, the one with all the grills, and then this one has that diffuser for its lower part. Got brakes here. And again, it's all super crisp, super nicely moulded. These parts are exceptionally glossy. These are just normal, but they're still very, very well moulded. There is a mould seam on, I think these are seat headrests, and they do sport mould seams that will need cleaning up. And then here we have Sprue C, and this is the last of the main ones, and we're back to black. And clearly this is the main underfloor part. Again, wonderfully detailed and nicely finished, and quite frankly would be perfectly acceptable to be left in bare black plastic, in my opinion. Doesn't really even have a lot of moulding flaws. There's one going across here, but you know, with the flow marks. And then yeah, the internal sort of tub assembly there. Obviously that will need finishing because carpets aren't normally shiny unless you're in a pub or club. We've got some more chassis parts, and these are the standard wheels, or at least part of them. So we can surmise from this quick Sprue look around, I nearly said Sprue tour, copyright Jamie Haggo there, that you have got details of the chassis, but there's nothing engine wise. It's just going to, the exhaust will disappear up here, and there's an under tray. And in fairness, the real car, as with pretty much all cars nowadays, does have complete under tray for aerodynamics and emissions and what have you. By emissions I'm talking about aerodynamics, reducing miles per gallon usage. So, and chrome sprue. This is D and it's very shiny. And you'll note that Tamiya have not done what so many other manufacturers do, where they provide a chrome sprue and then plonk the sprue gates in places where you will end up removing said chrome, which is very, very annoying. However, I suspect that most car modelers will find that a tad bright. So those black parts I showed you a second ago interlock with these to make up the standard wheels, and these other parts are going to be mostly internal parts for the lights. That's that, and here is the body shell then. And despite the fact that I will be painting it, I don't want to scratch it with the staple by wrenching the bag off. Hopefully it's easier to see the finish on this part, a bit bigger, reflecting in the lights there. Yeah, I mean that is very, very good. Very, very good. But there are flow marks, but I think if it were polished then potentially they wouldn't be very, very visible at all. But the problem is there is a need to use a multi-part tool to make a piece like this. There's lots of undercuts and there's lots of shape, and as a result of that there is in fact a mould seam running all the way along that door. And just across here on the rear wing. That can be dealt with obviously in exactly the same way that you would deal with a canopy mould seam if you didn't want to paint the shell for any reason. Don't know if that's visible or not, but hold it there. But it's lovely. It very, very much captures the look of the Supra, which is quite a cool looking car. Don't think I've said at any point, this is of course 1/24th scale. Alright, and then finally we have these two. A transparency setup. And they are fabulous, absolutely what you'd expect from Tamiya. Look at the finish on that, it's outstanding. Optically borderline perfect. You've got all your lamp clusters, light lenses, and of course the main windows for the car. That is a raised detail on there, on that windscreen of where you're going to paint the black areas, as it is on the side glass as well. And lastly then, you've got your little accessory pack here. In this case all we've got is 4 tyres and a couple of polycaps, 4 polycaps I'm going to assume for the wheels. You sometimes get the odd sort of springs and bits of tubing and tiny Tamiya screwdrivers in those, depending what you're building. So we've got 4 tyres, they are not branded. Generic sporty tread pattern there with the obligatory mould seam around the middle, but it's not super noticeable. 2 fat ones, 2 slightly less fat ones thus, and polycaps are polycaps. Okay, so quite a lot of plastic parts there, quite a substantial amount, and lots of detail. So there's a little pack here with decals in it. You get some self-adhesive, these have got sticky on the back, chrome foil type labels, I think they call them labels in the instructions, which have the mirror glass and badges and things like that. Then there's a decal sheet here which reproduces number plates and grills and mesh and things like that, little lights, dashboard stuff, all reproduced there. Standard Tamiya fare, beautifully printed, absolutely immaculate stuff. And also within that little package is a set of masking stickers. Now normally in the past, other Tamiya kits of this nature that I have built or dealt with, you have to cut these out. You cut around the lines and that gives you your mask. These are die cut. At last, Tamiya are producing proper die cut masks. Hopefully they'll still fit. I've always found them to fit very, very well, the ones that you have to cut around the lines. Dare I say it, better than any of the pre-cut masks that I've ever used from other companies. I'll just pop those back in there before I lose them, because that is what always happens. Okay, moving on from there, we've got the instruction sheet, we've got the standard Tamiya Tech Tips sheet you've seen before. Different tools and the use thereof, a suggested basic tool set there, and a bunch of tips including shake if you're going to use an aerosol. These kits always recommend the TS aerosols for the main colours. Here, background information then on the Toyota Supra Custom in Japanese, and on the back reproduced in English. Finally then, the instruction leaflet itself. This is stapled booklet style, not the fold out like a lot of Tamiya kits. You've got recommended tools at the bottom here, and a reproduction of the box art again. And off we go. So we start with the rear suspension, and I know it's the rear suspension because Tamiya still tell you these things in their instructions, which I do enjoy. Then moving on to rear brakes, attaching that assembly to the chassis plate. Let's call it the chassis. Yeah, black. I'm saying paint that black plastic part in semi-gloss black. So if you're lazy and or efficient, you can just leave it black plastic. Front suspension is added along with that under tray part, so you won't be able to see that there isn't an engine in there, to be honest, without torches, mirrors and magnifying equipment. Then you got your wheels and tyres, they simply press together, and here is the detail of the normal wheels, so called. We attach the exhaust and the wheels to the rest of the chassis, and then we move to the interior. And here's where you see the instructions starting to diverge. You've got A or B and C, and that simply refers to, as noted on the first page, A Japan version, B Europe version, C US version. So left or right hand drive basically. We go adding more to the interior. There's the steering wheel, that requires some decals, and then the dashboards, the seats, and adding all of that into that interior tub, followed by the door panels and then the boot, which is not massive on these cars. It's really, really small. It's not a tiny car, but the luggage capacity of it is very, very small. Then moving to the body, which you have or have not painted in the colour of your choice, we add the side skirts, and then these rear quarter mouldings, which on this version are shown as being carbon finished on the box art, but there are no carbon effect decals included to put on these parts. Here it's explaining the window stickers, where to fit them, and note again it says to fit them to the inside, because the idea is not to protect the transparencies from the paint colour on the outside, but in fact to paint the internal area black for that part of the glass which is always black on a real car. So all of these are masked on the inside, apart from the side windows which are both inside and outside. Okay, once all of that's painted, then you can fix those transparent parts into the shell from the inside again, and then you fit the bumper, front bumper, with its grills and spoilers, build up headlights. Be a lot of use of clear colours here, I suspect, and there are also a significant number of decals going in there. Putting those onto the inside of the bumper moulding and then adding the back end parts. Boot lid and spoiler, and then the good old fit the body onto the chassis, tip the nose in first and then stretch the back over, or vice versa. This saying insert chassis at the rear first, so tip the rear in and then stretch the front over. And then it's just peripheral details. There's pillar mouldings, number plates and exhaust tips and things like that. And finally wing mirrors. Painting. This suggests white overall. Obviously paint it in the colour of your choice, or the colour that your car is. Christopher's car is metallic grey. And that is the instructions. It is a super complete package. It's very, very good quality. It's everything that we all expect from Tamiya, I think. Apart from the price, I do think that £35 for something like this is pretty reasonable in today's market. And you could argue that it isn't. And then I'll counter argue that you can spend the same amount of money, and indeed more, on something like this. And whilst the subject matter is potentially a bit more interesting to a lot of people, it's the same or slightly more money for a heck of a lot less parts that were originally moulded in the same decade that the subject matter came out, and approximately 1/3 of these parts will fit together with anything resembling a decent fit. These things are hard work, so in comparison I'll take the £35 Tamiya Supra any day of the week. But that is my very quick look review of the brand new Tamiya 124 Toyota GR Supra Custom. Looks like a beautiful kit. I'm very much looking forward to putting it together, and I do not doubt that it will produce a fine replica of what is a very handsome car in real life. So although I'm sure I've missed out all kinds of things that proper car model kit reviewers would have included, that will do for me. Thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it greatly, and I appreciate all of you. And with all of that said, I think it only remains for me to say, until next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.